House to Home, presented by RE/MAX Diamond Realty.
If ever there was a time to check out House to Home, where we talk about all things real estate, today would be the episode, my friends, because I'm Jason Salas and I have my two BFFs here, Liz and Gina, and I'm just going to stay the heck out of their way because they are not happy campers this afternoon. Liz and Gina, you've got a bone to pick apparently with the legislature, not only over a piece of legislation which has absolute bearing on your business, but also the way in which public hearings are conducted, as I understand it. So, Gina, why don't you contextualize and give us some backstory?
Actually, Jace, can I say this bill? I know people like this morning during the hearing.
For Bill 404, it is.
For
Bill
the
404.
404. Okay.
There were individuals that said this is going to impact the real estate community, but can I say that actually not? This bill, what it does is it eliminates eliminates the parental subdivision portion that allows a family to cut up their lot into 929 square meters. And if anyone is familiar with the parental subdivision law, so basically the gist of the law is, hey, for families, for parents who want to cut up their properties, the minimum you could go is 929 and still be able to build. So it's a quarter acre lot. Everybody refers to it as quarter acre. And that way you could, like if you have an acre, now you've got 4 lots that you could give to your kids, or 3. So it just gives you the ability to produce more property with a smaller amount of land, and you could still build on it. So this law only targets those individuals. And the reason that I say this really doesn't impact real estate, it doesn't impact my business, it doesn't impact development, because that law was not geared towards promoting development or real estate business. That law was to promote families' ability to be able to cut up their property into more pieces and pass it down to their children. And in fact, the law is very clear. In a parental subdivision, you cannot sell the property for up to 5 years. Exactly. So if you're a developer, this is not the way you're going to go to milk the government and build houses, because you can't sell them.
So are you saying, Gina, just so I understand correctly, are you saying this bill is contradictory to existing public policy, or is it just like very, very badly formed as?
It will eliminate existing laws.
Okay.
So right now the law says, as a parent, I could take my property and cut it up into quarter acre lots, and I still have the ability to build, and I could pass it on to my children. And it also says, if you use this law, you cannot build. The parent, the one I keep, because I get to keep one and give the rest to my kids, or I could give them all to my kids. But if I give them all to my kids, they can't sell for 5 years, right? So how is this a developer's dream? It wasn't designed for developers. This is designed for families. And this bill only targets that part of the law. So if you want to do a parental, now you can't build. You could build if you bring in the sewer, but half of these families can't even afford to bring in water. How are they going to be able to bring in sewer? So we're not doing this to promote our business so we have lots of property to sell. That's not what this is about. We're concerned about the rights of individuals, and particularly the rights of families. That's what we're worried about.
So the principle of the thing.
Yeah, I mean, many of us are products of parental subdivision. Many of us, and it's an opportunity for families to give their children property, and especially when land is limited right now, and in the northern area especially. But this targets property over aquifer. Now there are 2 points here. The 2 points is they're talking about the nitrates in the water and pollution. We understand that, but where is the correlation between the septic tanks being the issue? I mean, we've talked about that in previous shows. So they want to take it apart, and there's charts. I mean, you could put a chart up and say, hey, they haven't really done in-depth studies. They're referring to situation in Saipan. Well, Saipan is in Guam. And then there are areas that they showed us on the chart that wasn't a red area, but there's septic tanks in the neighborhood. So we're saying there are two things here. One, why prohibit me from giving my children, cutting up my property so I could give my children land so that they can get a good start in life and build their home? That was what the parental subdivision law was about, to give our local families the opportunity to pass on property. And now they're taking that right away, and they're stating that, yes, you could still do half-acre parcels, or if there's sewer, the whole island, there are areas that there aren't any sewers, and the government's ability to get sewers to certain areas will be what, 20, 30, 40 years from now? And the maintenance of that is another issue. So, I mean, give us something. If you showed us a real study that told me, well, then there are alternatives. There are alternative sewer or septic tank systems that are out there. But there's one that was introduced, guess when? 9 years ago. Did EPA approve it? No, it's still 9 years. So even if we brought alternative septic systems available, number one, is it cost effective? It's pricey to even do that. And then when will EPA approve it? Will the government approve it? If there was one sitting for 9 years that hasn't been approved, who's to say if we have 5 alternatives and what? It sits because no one approved it. Sit for another 10, 15, 20 years before you can develop your property. You cannot build. You can't do anything with it. It's rendering it useless. It's rendering it no value. And who's going to buy? So for us, it's not about that. It's about families that are able to pass the property on. We need to get the word out because the people we talked to today are so upset. They couldn't even get into the hearing room. They sent emails, no response, no links.
I'd like to talk about that in just one moment, but ladies, if I can just ask, because this bill 404, was of course introduced by Senator Regine Biscoe-Lee, who now, as everyone knows, will not be returning to the legislature.
She's not going to be there.
Yeah, so time is of the essence. So it seems like this is, you guys just want this bill nixed because, she's on the clock, basically. This either passes or it's going to lapse when the new legislature takes over.
For some reason, Jason, they're pushing this along. They're trying to ramrod this through. Why? There's something not quite right about this process and not letting as many people know about the public hearings or even allowing them to testify. They're going to sit in the gallery and watch through Facebook. Give me a break.
Yes, okay, so Gina, kind of explain your experience, because you were actually you experienced that first person.
So Jason, this is a bill that's been really close to our heart, dear to us, because Liz and I, we come across a lot of families that are land rich, and they're, we talk to these older families, and some of them are young too, but their whole goal is to pass on their property to their children. So we can really appreciate that, because being in the business, we know how expensive it is out there for people to own a home. So this is really close to our heart. So when we saw this come up, our concern was, why is this targeting parental subdivisions of all things? I mean, yes, we acknowledge that we need to address the issue with the water table and the water contamination of the waterlands. But here's the report. Here's the WERI report. And I go to page 2, first paragraph. And this is what the report says.
I'm sure you've got the thing memorized by this point.
It is not yet possible with the data at hand to precisely measure the absolute or relative contributions of sewage line leaks. Sewage line leaks belongs to the government of Guam. That's on them. And septic tank discharge at any given location, or to the total amount of nitrate entering the groundwater. So in English, what does that say? We don't really know how this is contributing. But let's have this discussion anyway. And so you take this and then you put it into a bill and you eliminate parental rights based on something that says it is not yet possible with the data at hand to precisely measure the absolute or relative contribution of these these septic tanks and sewer line leakage to the nitrate situation. So it's like, so can you possibly read that and say, this is an emergency? We have COVID and our people cannot come to the legislature to testify in person, but we are going to ram this and get this through because this is an emergency. Can somebody with reasonable thinking read that and say, yes, this is an emergency? We got to get this done like tomorrow, or else the water table is going to be completely contaminated. No, I don't see the emergency. And my concern is there's a lot of family members that I've talked to who don't have access. They can't log on to a Zoom meeting and participate. But here's what happened to us today. We made an effort to call. We registered our names. Then we had to remind them to send us the link. And even after that, we got our Zoom link. We logged on, and then we were logged off. And so I was sitting there twiddling my thumb, waiting for the meeting to begin. And then I just thought, well, there must be something wrong. So I called the senator's office and I spoke to Joe, and I got to get his name right because I'm really upset at what he did.
Joe Messner from Joe St. Augustine's office.
Yes. So
okay.
He told me, he explained to me, we were actually removed from the meeting because we've already testified before. And he explained to me that I can go on YouTube and listen. Well, what's the point in doing that? If I made an effort to be present, whether it's in person, I would have preferred in person, but in the Zoom meeting, if I made an effort to be present, why are you removing me? And everybody else that's on there that they didn't feel needed to testify. No, I have the right to testify once, twice, three. If you're going to have a public hearing, at each public hearing, I have the right to testify. And he explained that they wanted to control the people coming in and out of the Zoom meeting. For what purpose? You represent an elected official who is there to serve the public. You don't get to control what we do. I was so perturbed. I demanded to stay on the phone line until they activated back us on. You know, I had so many families that this morning we were trying to figure out how to get them activated on Zoom. We were able to get.
Were you activated? Did they let you back in the room?
They finally he said that they had about 40 people, but by the time they started activating everybody back on, some people had already dropped out because they didn't I don't know if they just thought the meeting was canceled.
But that's terrible if they had 40 people. Think about that. 40 people waiting to get into the Zoom to testify, and they didn't allow them in. That's ridiculous, don't you think?
Well,
it doesn't make any sense.
Tell you what, for our next episode, I really want to try and get either Joe from the senator's office or the senator herself and everything, or himself to maybe explain the rationale behind that. I'd like to hear their side from it as well.
Yeah, we'd like to hear, because it doesn't make sense at all.
Okay, well, we'll do that. We'll do that for next week. But
a public hearing is for the public to come and speak. Mm-hmm. It's not referred to as a private hearing. It's referred to as a public hearing. Mm-hmm. And they're there to serve the people, period.
Very true. Well, ladies, and until then, I wish we could do this in person again. I mean, I'm glad I'm not within striking distance from either of you. I gotta be completely honest. But until then, Gina, please switch to decaf, please, and we'll make sure to try and get resolution on this issue, because obviously this is.
I said I haven't had coffee yet, but you know what? We really do want these in-person meetings, and we are so good about wearing our masks.
Good. Then you're one of the good ones, and you're doing what you should. So, yeah, we're gonna get to the bottom of this, and we'll figure out what's going on, because obviously, this is something that not only the two of you are passionate about on behalf of your clients and your industry, but this is something that's very, very important for the community. So we need to know.
Hey, what is the date, Gina? December 9, 5 o'clock.
December 9,
get your written testimony ready and get on that Zoom call and make a difference for Guam.
Well, that's next Wednesday, the day after Santa Maria and Camelin Day. So, participate in the
Yeah.
procession, and then participate in democracy.
Absolutely.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
There you go. Thank you, ladies. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.